Before we tackle the new Bigfoot show, Les Stroud's Survivorman Bigfoot, that just recently aired in Canada on the Travel and Escape channel, we need to look at Les Stroud's chosen guide in Canada, his source material. It's Todd Standing, ladies and gentlemen. Now, who's Les Stroud? Who's Todd Standing? Is he a hoaxer or a disgruntled fired employee from Jim Henson Studios? Find out on tonight's After Hours with Rictor. Well, good evening, everyone. This is another After Hours with Rictor. I'm your host. My name is Rictor Riolo.
Rictor!
What?
Leave him alone!
Now we got Rictor going. We're going to have to hear about it all night. That's a bunch of screaming memes out there, and that's the scoop that has been reported so far.
Well, when you don't believe in Bigfoot, everything you see that might be one is something else.
Is this thing on? Am I muted? Can you hear me? Hello?
My question is, why do you think Bigfoot is real?
Welcome to After Hours with Rictor. I am your host, Rictor Riolo from Spike TV's $10 million Bigfoot Bounty. Joining me once again is the most beautiful Bigfoot pendant-making Sassy Glassy Tammy Murray.
Hello, Rictor. Thank you.
And thank you for being the #1 fan of Bigfoot Bounty. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you. I love it. I love you on Bigfoot Bounty. You and Dax should have won.
That's right. All right. Joining us tonight is a very special guest. I've been after her for a long time. She is, let's count all the things that she is. She's an author. Ooh. An archaeologist. Wow. A Bigfoot researcher, a mother of 2, a wife, a cook, and now a webcaster. Welcome, Kathy Strain.
Yeah! Yay!
Now,
Hi.
she's been on TV too. Monster Quest.
Actual evidencia de Bigfoot party. Creo que una persona estaba jugando un partido contigo.
Hey, Kathy, what was that like?
Oh, Monster Quest. It was really actually a lot of fun. I think I was on 2 episodes of that. Early on, we did an all-female expedition that was a hoot and a half, and then we did a Native American one as well. But I've been on, Definitive Guide and Giganto, the Real King Kong, and a few others recently. I can't keep up with all of them. So
wow, that
you
is
must
so
be
cool.
rich. All this
I wish,
television. Because we know those gigs really pay well, right?
Yes, $10 million if you're lucky.
well, I have to say that I disagree. I was a huge fan of $10 million bounty for you, Rictor. I agree. You should have won too. I really enjoyed you being on the show.
But I think Stacy Brown did a good job. I mean, it was him or Michael Merchant.
They did. The more enjoyable people, it was definitely the right selection at the end for sure. But it it was very entertaining. I really enjoyed it.
Monster Quest. We'll talk about that real quick. The episode, the all-girl team. If it was me, if I had come up with that Monster Quest episode, I would have probably called it like the Bitches of Bigfoot. I mean, desperate Bigfoot wives. I mean, you've got Monica Rollins and those 2 other girls that I can't remember their names, and then we have Kathy Strain, and you're like the den mother, so you were like keeping all those girls in check. Oh wait, Melissa Hovey. Now how can I forget Melissa Hovey? Easily. All right, so moving on.
Would you say that it was a hormone-rich environment?
No, not necessarily. I think it was more or less a little bit of frustration of why we were there and what we were there to accomplish. And I was much more happy with how the second episode of Monster Quest that we did, Native People and their traditional beliefs, how that turned out, because I had a lot more control over how it was presented, and they did exactly what I wanted to do and how it was presented. So I felt like that was a true representation of how we filmed it and how it was shown on television.
You know, I miss Monster Quest. Have you heard any talk, gossip? Is there any chance of it coming back?
No. No chance.
No. Bummer. Todd Standing, the Bigfoot researcher or hoaxer or disgruntled Jim Henson Productions employee, whichever your point of view of him is, was chosen by the Survivorman himself, Les Stroud, for his 2-part Bigfoot special. Now, let's do a quick rundown of the show, shall we? Survivorman thinks he may have had a Bigfoot experience back in Alaska a few years ago, and now he wants to see one for himself. He calls them Gigantopithecus. Now, based on what? Don't you think that's a little brave? Now, Todd takes him to a remote area in the foothills of Alberta, Canada, where both men miss a total Brokeback Mountain opportunity. Why else would 2 guys go off alone into the mountains? One sleeps in the car, the other's now sleeping out in the sleeping bag. Come on, guys. Oh, so close. Well, maybe they hook up in the next episode. Anyway, they find stick structures, much like the one me and Dax found on Bigfoot Bounty by the Klickitat River in Washington State. Ooh. But these are way up in Canada. Wow! Standing has his theories on what they mean, and Stroud tries to make sense of it all. Then they hear some response whoops, knocking sounds, their apple bait gets taken, and they think they find footprints in the grass. And it ends with Survivorman stopping in mid-sentence, hearing something moving in the brush. Total epic cliffhanger. Well played, Stroud. Well played. So tonight on After Hours, our very special guest is Kathy Strain. She has had a Bigfoot experience herself, and I thought, wow, what a great person to have on while we talk about Les Stroud's Survivorman Bigfoot show that's just recently aired up in Canada on the Travel and Leisure something or rather.
Travel and Escape.
Yeah. And it's going to be coming out here on the Discovery Channel in the United States. And Todd Standing is, as Matt Moneymaker said in my little video that I put together, controversial. There's a lot of things to talk about in regards to Todd Standing. He's a huge Bigfoot enthusiast. He is a Bigfoot researcher. Got to give him that. He wants to protect the species. He is outspoken. He's articulate. He is in it for money, which I guess maybe some say there's nothing wrong with that. Some people have to make a living. But is he frauding everybody? These photos, these images that he's provided of a Bigfoot, is that a Bigfoot? Is that a puppet? I make jokes about it being, you know, a Jim Henson puppet. I mean, just look at them. I don't know. Kathy, you've seen a Bigfoot. Is that a Bigfoot that Todd Standing is showing us?
No, it's not. Not even slightly. It's the most fake-looking thing I think I've ever seen in my life, and I can't imagine that anybody would believe it was real. And it actually makes, at first I thought it was a Photoshop job, but Les Stroud mentions in the TV series, because I saw it, that there's a video. And so if it's a puppet, that actually makes more sense, that maybe he would have slightly moved it enough to get some video. But it's so fake. That's not at all what they look like.
Well, for 25 years, Les Stroud has been a Survivorman. He's done very well with his television shows, and he wants to get as close as he can to Bigfoot to prove that it's real once and for all. He wants to see one for himself. And so who does he choose? He chooses Todd Standing, another Canadian man. And even in the Survivorman Bigfoot show, he shows the puppet-looking video footage of Todd Standing's and says that either Todd Standing is the the greatest, what do you say, Tammy? One of the greatest researchers out there?
He's the best, one of the best in the field.
Right, or he's a hoaxer. So that's the two options that Les Stroud gives us in his Survivorman Bigfoot show.
Right, I know which I choose.
Yeah, I know which one I would choose because, I mean, I guess I would have thought that he would have done some research and figured out who is considered legitimate by the community to represent Bigfooting. Would not have been Todd Standing in any way, sense, or form. And he could have, agreed that they're both Canadian, and maybe that's what the issue was. But it's when you associate yourself with somebody who is thought very little of in the community, it reflects on you. It would be the same as if he had picked like Tom Biscardi or something. I mean, why do that to yourself? Why pick somebody who has so little respect?
Tammy, you've recently been in contact with Les Stroud via Twitter. What were you two of you talking about?
The thing I wanted to mention is that I have always been a huge Survivorman fan. I mean, first of all, what's not to like about the guy? You know, he's adorable. He's rugged. He's outdoorsy. He can survive. You know, I bet he could take out a zombie.
Well, I gotta say, he was looking pretty good in that tight black shirt.
You like that?
I did.
But whenever I had first heard that he was going to do a Bigfoot version of Survivorman and who he had picked as his expert, he kind of started to come off this pedestal for me a little bit, and he's fallen completely now because you know, I feel like it's just all about making television, and it's not really about about science, okay? And so I tweeted to him, Les, a person that I'm acquainted with met you last year. He said you told him reality TV isn't real. And so Les responded, that's true, it isn't. I don't do reality TV. I make documentaries. And so I responded, and you are excellent at what you do. And what I meant by that response was making television. And I've only seen the first part. I think the second part of the Survivorman Bigfoot was aired tonight, but we won't be able to see it until we can catch it on YouTube.
For the 5 minutes that it's up.
Yeah.
Todd Standing was recently on Finding Bigfoot a couple years ago when the Fab Four were up in Alberta, and they never showed Todd Standing's puppet-looking photos. They only talked about video footage of something squatting in the bushes.
They showed some footage of something. Was that the actual footage, or was that a recreation?
Well, they did a recreation with Bobo, but there was actual footage of something squatting in the bushes.
It looked like a rug.
Right, but it did. But here's the thing. He didn't take him to the exact location because he said it was too dangerous because there was bears and mice and
lions and tigers
birds.
And bears. Yeah.
3 years ago, in Season 2 of Finding Bigfoot, the Fab Four are in hopes of proving the existence of Bigfoot in America's neighbor to the north, eastern Alberta. Matt Moneymaker said, quote, Todd Standing's footage is controversial because he's told a lot of stories, and I think a lot of people found those stories very hard to swallow. Matt continues, people always got a sense he was trying to sell something when he was pushing these stories, and he gained a reputation for being a hoaxer. Cliff Barackman said that Todd Standing's footage was ambiguous. Bobo even said it was hoaxy. Here's where it gets interesting, guys. Renee Holland said, quote, he won't tell us the location where this occurred because there's bears and you have to come and risk your life to go there. That's the kind of work I do. Why does he have to be so elusive? Why not just take us to the original location? Well, you know, Renee, you know, I have to agree with her. Girl gets a lot of shit for being the skeptic, but she makes some amazing points with that. And she continues, it squats down and goes out of sight? Why don't you go up there? Why don't you throw a rock? Why don't you flush the animal out? Okay, Todd Standing did not take Matt Moneymaker's group to the exact location of his video recording, claiming it was extremely difficult to get to, plus it was dangerous with the mountain lions and the bears. Okay, so the Finding Bigfoot researchers do something really dumb and do a make-believe recreation. You might as well film Bobo walking into a marijuana dispensary because it wasn't recorded at the exact location. Because you're going to get the same uncontrolled results. Let's talk about this. I think it was a complete waste of time on Finding Bigfoot to have even gone up there to interview him. And they're like, okay, well, he's controversial, and, well, even though this doesn't really hold up, we're going to spend a couple nights out here because it's beautiful and looks squatchy. And that was the entire episode. Mm-hmm. Kathy, you have been acquainted with the Finding Bigfoot crew. Mm-hmm. Do they take this seriously?
Oh yeah, I know Bobo, and I know Cliff, and I know Matt. I recently had met Renee, but yeah, they really do take this very seriously. Cliff and Bobo are hardcore Bigfooters, and Cliff is living his dream in the sense of being able to go out into the woods. And I think, and he's Matt is probably the most blunt of them all, in the sense of he'll tell you, oh, you're a hoaxer, and be done with it, and he doesn't have any issue with doing that at all. But Cliff and Bobo are probably a little more gentle souls in the sense of not wanting to actually confront somebody right off the bat. But I've talked with them both. They definitely 100%, all four of them believe that Todd Standing is a hoaxer, and that footage and those photographs are totally faked.
Well, Matt Moneymaker said Todd Standing is controversial. Mm-hmm. Cliff Barackman said the footage is ambiguous. Bobo said that it was hoaxy. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Renee Holland, who, like I said in my little video clip, she takes a lot of shit from everybody for being the skeptic, but she makes a lot of valid points. She's used to the outdoors and dangerous situations, blah, 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 bears and mice and birds and squirrels. And why couldn't he take them up there to that exact location? I mean, if you were filming that, why didn't you throw something, get more of a response from it?
I totally agree. If you first of all, how television works, you're contacted by a producer who wants to have information from you or get something from you. And so somebody contacted Todd Standing and said, oh, you have this footage. Do you want to be on Finding Bigfoot? Can you take us to the location of where this was filmed so we can do a recreation? That's how this all flows. And so at some point, Todd probably agreed to that, and then whatever at the last minute or whatever said, well, I don't really want to take you there. And if the excuse was because there's bears, I mean, I think I remember him saying in the past that you have to pass through this hole and you could be killed at any moment by a Bigfoot who doesn't like you, something along those lines of why this place was so sacred. I don't believe it for one single minute. It means you can't reproduce anything that you've done because it's all a hoax. I would have no issue taking anybody to any place where I've ever had experience and let you, test my methods, measure my measurements, reproduce. That's what science is. You can reproduce the results. And Todd Standing clearly can't do that because they don't want to see the tree where you put the puppet or the Photoshop behind and see that the tree's this big, and you're like, no. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. That's the truth of the matter. Yeah. You only hide things because you have something to hide.
Speaking of hiding things, on Survivorman Bigfoot, they don't say exactly where they are in Alberta. They say it's in a remote area with foothills of Alberta. And Les Stroud asked two questions. Do you believe in Bigfoot? And the second question is, do you think it's possible that an ape bipedal hominid species could exist around the world in thick, remote areas and be responsible for thousands of vocalizations and rock throwings and supposed film footage? And I think all of us here can say yes and yes. And I even think he's starting to lean towards yes based on his own personal experience a few years ago in Alaska that, scared him pretty much. He thought there was a giant ape running through the forest.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with him wanting to know more about Bigfoot. I wish more people would take this more seriously in order to put it through to the forefront and not be a mockery. And so I honor him for that he wanted to do something and put his reputation at risk for people who go, I can't believe he's doing a Bigfoot show.
Right.
The problem is what he chose to include in that. He could have done a classy act. Instead he did, in my opinion, a cheap act. And so that's unfortunate. And and I don't know a lot about Alberta. I don't know the terrain at all. It did look very woodsy. They were traveling on what looked to be a transmission line road of some sort that it's cut, evenly across. Didn't seem to be any other kind of maybe roads, but of course you see what you're shown. And so, I mean, I don't doubt that Bigfoot exists, and I don't, at one point they hear Todd, I think, does a whoop, and it was kind of a little hoaxy where he goes, I do this sounds to let Bigfoot know I'm here and that I'm welcome to be there, and you're like, really? And I mean, it was a little bit much. And you hear a whoop in the distance that you kind of can make out on camera. That kind of, and he goes, well, we just heard, Les says, we just heard this. Well, either Todd has somebody out here to whoop to us, or that was a real Bigfoot. Well, what did you do? What scientific methods did you take to come to the conclusion that there was nobody else out there? Did you go to the spot where you heard the whoop? Did you run towards it? What did you do to try to come to the conclusion you came to? And that's what I'm disappointed in, is that there's no scientific methodology being used in order to conclude that Todd didn't set all that up.
Well, these two gentlemen are guilty of something that Dax and myself did. And what everybody else on Bigfoot Bounty was complaining about us. We were very loud and talking and blah, blah, blah. But we got cameras on and microphones, and they want us to talk and talk about what we're seeing and doing. Except when we heard the sounds coming from the Indian reservation, and I'm like whispering, that's the sound of a Sasquatch. I'm not joking. I'm not like, oh, that's the sound of a Bigfoot. Hey. So even I, being the new Bigfooter here, knew when to whisper.
Yeah.
Right? I mean.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Let me do a demonstration. This is my favorite thing to do. Call blast. Okay, everybody, we're supposed to be quiet. You got this one person over in the corner going, crumbling up a potato chip thing, and you're like, really? Didn't I just tell you to be quiet? Oh, yeah, gotta be quiet. Yeah, be quiet. Yeah, that's the point. You don't have to talk incessantly in the woods, and that's very important type of research to do. If you have a microphone on, stop talking.
But you know what, Kathy? These two gentlemen were making TV. That's what it is, and I was taking it seriously when I was on Bigfoot Bounty. Yeah, it's a reality TV show competition, but, wow, here we are in the middle of Bigfoot country, and we're hearing these sounds. It's like, be quiet. And our audio people were quiet, our camera guy was quiet, and we were listening. It was great.
Yeah. And that's the key to Bigfooting with experiences. The second you hear something, you have hand signals, or keywords that we used to have, that stop. And you're listening then to something that's going on, and that just comes with time, type of thing of and that's again goes back to scientific protocols. What is your protocols when you're in the field? How do you behave? Did you read it? Did you learn it? Did you master it? This is what we do in this situation. This is what we do in this situation, and that's kind of the point. Is again, science gets you to the end because you're prepared. You're learned, and you're ready to do that activity in the field.
Whenever they put the apples and stuff on the trees, and on the and this was on a stick structure, they were doing that, and they're walking all around the bottom of it, and they come back the next day, the apples are gone, and they find footprints. They did not treat this like a crime scene where evidence should be collected. They had been previously walking all over the place to put these apples and stuff out, and then say, well, it wasn't, those footprints weren't there before. Well, how do you know that? You were walking all over the place there the day before.
Correct. Correct. And they didn't put a camera up, a hidden, stealthy surveillance camera that could have snapped whatever took those apples, which was probably a deer. Yes, that it's almost like they set themselves up to have things happen in order to have that on camera.
To make good
TV.
Making
TV. And, I don't want to sound so negative. I mean, I know TV is TV, and that's what makes money, and that's what gets ratings, and to some degree, having Bigfoot on television, finding Bigfoot has done us a lot of good of getting witnesses to feel comfortable to come out and talk to us about what their experiences are, because they're like, oh, finally somebody recognizes it, it's on television. So I'm not saying anything bad about that. That's a way of bringing people out. But there should be still, ways of doing things that are professional. And that's all I would say about that.
Those apples. A raccoon could have taken them.
Anything.
Right? I mean,
Yep.
They said they put the apples high so that a deer won't take them. Well, what about raccoons? Raccoons like, fruits and vegetables. I know for a fact. I've seen them eat figs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could have been anything. And so, and that's the kind of thing, I know a lot of people complain about finding Bigfoot being boring in the sense that, they're not creating.
It is the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, but they're trying, when they put out bait, they put a camera on it in order to see if bait's being done. They call, blast, and record. And it's, Bigfooting is 99.9999999% nothing, and very lucky having anything happen at all. And when you don't stay in a place for a long period of time, your chances are even less. And that's just the way it is. It's random, unpredictable behavior. If we could predict it, we'd already have a body, I guess.
Let's go back to earlier when Tammy was talking about the stick structures, the broken trees. I learned something from this Survivorman Bigfoot episode, I must admit. I am not the biggest know-it-all when it comes to Bigfoot, and I wish I had this foreknowledge when I was on Bounty. They were talking about the age of that big giant stick structure, how old it was compared to what was around it. And when Dax and I found our stick structure, we didn't look at the age. We were looking at the breaks, how it could have been put together. Was it because of the weather, the snow, wind? Where were those trees broken from? We would look for stumps. We never once thought about the age. So I gotta say, I learned something from Todd Standing.
Well, okay. Well, I have something to say about that as well. First of all, he made a comment that structure could have been there for 50 years. There's no way that could be there for 50 years. Wood deteriorates. When you have rain and snow, it causes wood to deteriorate at a faster rate. There's no way that happened. Ooh. So, if anything, it may be a little older than 5 years. You'd have to look at the stump, but that's an incorrect determination. So, they don't obviously know anything about wood deterioration. Once a tree is dead, it only has so long that it survives. And other weather, as it comes in, helps it further along. In dry, unwet areas in the desert, it'll last longer. Wet environments deteriorates even faster.
I gotta say something to back that up.
Sure.
On Bounty, on our second hunt, the one where I fell in the river, we were in this forest area where there was a lot of trees that had fallen over, probably from the weather. Deadfall, and they were old. And whenever we stepped on the logs, our feet would go right through them.
Right.
It was like, yeah, it was like stepping on cardboard boxes.
Right. And that can happen, especially in the Pacific Northwest, which isn't as wet and cold as Alberta, in very little time. I mean, 20 to 25 years where you're talking about that. If wood didn't deteriorate on its own from natural deadfalls, you wouldn't be able to walk in the woods. That's what causes soil. That causes nutrients to go into soil. It's like rocks. Soil is is eroded rocks. That's how it exists. Nutrients are from plants that die and decompose into those rocks to become soil. So it's a constant process. And if a log takes 50 years to deteriorate, something that small, which appeared to be either an aspen or something that what I would call a softwood, it's not a pine or hardwood as we would call it, deteriorates even faster. And there's studies that can back that up all over the place of what that deterioration length is.
Tammy, I never even thought about this before.
I have a lot of difficulty believing all of these stick structures are made by Bigfoot, because I see so much deadfall, storm damage, and everything on my property. We've only got 16 acres. I see there's stick structures all over the place in the wooded part of our property, and it's all from weather. You know, I've never had any activity here. There's been a couple of sightings within 3 miles of here, but it's been so long ago. I think, you know, it was probably some kind of either a misidentification or a transient.
I think you're in Bigfoot denial.
You think?
You need to embrace the Bigfoot.
Okay.
Everything on your property is Bigfoot related.
Kathy, I want to ask you this about.
I could do that.
You might as well.
Yeah, everybody else does, huh?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put up the pictures on the final edit of what I'm talking about. The design of the stick structure that I found with Dax, and the same thing that Les and Todd found up in Alberta, is almost identical, except the two of them are different in size.
Mm-hmm.
If these creatures are making these territorial markers, or whatever they are, what are the chances that it's the same small Bigfoot group that is making these territorial markers in Washington and all the way up in Alberta, or are they somehow sharing knowledge with each other? What's the story with that? What do you think?
Well, I think it would be impossible for it to be the same group. I mean, that is a migration route that would be almost impossible to carry on, because that's the distances that you would be able to go. And, you know, just to back up on behaviors, so at some point in our process of evolution, we had the Bering Land Bridge that connected Asia to North America. And we know that humans made that cross across that land bridge, then spread across North America, Central America, and South America. As humans, we all share many common traits of behavior. So we were able to make fire, we can make structures, we believed in family units, blah, 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 all that stuff that goes together. So it's not, even if you're not socialized with each other, because, you know, as you spread, you're going to be miles and miles, if not hundreds of miles, from the next unit of humans. You know, you're going after food, but yet they kept those behaviors intact and were able to pass it on to their children. So the same logical process would occur with a Sasquatch. If a Bigfoot came across a Bering Land Bridge in a population that shared common traits, and then for whatever reason were able to populate unhumanized areas where people weren't, they would have shared the commonalities of when they broke apart, which would explain why they may have certain traits. So if what they were doing before they came across the land bridge was making stick structures in order to share with each other, they would have kept that trait coming across the land bridge. And so that's what you have to figure out, is what were those commonalities that all of them share. Rock throwing must be part of that. Some sort of communication that we don't fully understand. Maybe these stick structures, maybe bending trees in the direction you're walking, all that stuff. That's why it's common. They're not still in access. So a group in California has no clue what a group in Oklahoma is doing. They don't have mind speak between each other, and they're not still in communication. There's just no possible way for that. That is just a shared common characteristic of behavior that they shared prior to breaking up into smaller communities and spreading across.
Do you remember Todd told Les that the reason why those certain trees that were bent pointing a certain direction was because Sasquatch was telling the trappers, that's your territory and this is our territory. And they were symmetrical and they were all in the same alignment. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and I've seen that. I literally have seen that. And for a while we recorded those, and they all seemed to be going in the same direction. What it meant, I mean, I couldn't interpret it at the time and I still can't interpret it because I don't know if there's like I said before, Native American people have believed that they did separate territories to not interfere with each other. I don't know that they never necessarily have said, well, this is how you know whose territory is this territory. But I have seen tree breaks in rows that don't make any sense at all. There won't be another tree broken anywhere around it, and there'll be a series of broken trees in a line that point towards something. I can't tell you what it means. I have no way of doing so.
Tammy, you're not sold on this, are you?
Not totally, no.
Are you open to it?
Yes.
Cool. All right, good. Because I'm like totally like, oh my gosh, Bigfoot evidence. Dax and I are the only two on Bigfoot Bounty that found actual Bigfoot evidence with that stick structure, if stick structures are associated truly with Bigfoot.
And that's what science is. That is what you're supposed to do. You go do that, record what it is that you're seeing that you know is attributed to nature, and then you can compare it scientifically to something somebody says is not natural, that it's constructed. Right. And that's how you start working through that. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough people. You only have two sides. You have, oh my God, it's Bigfoot side, and then you have, no, it's not Bigfoot, but there's no scientific study that's bringing those two things together in order to really understand what is it, you know. I mean, that's all I can say. When I found some of those tree breaks that I'm speaking of, we happened to have a timber cell that was happening nearby of where these twisted, broken branches were. And so I took our timber expert, who are experts in how trees grow, how trees are affected by weather, how trees are all this thing. And I took them and I said, can you tell me what caused this, this, and this? And I showed him the whole line. And he was angry. He was totally convinced that humans had caused it and were doing timber damage to trees and therefore violating the law. And he could come up with no natural explanation for why that had happened. And so that's why I kind of was like, oh, well, maybe I should be taking this a little more seriously, because here we have an expert in trees saying that's not natural. And so that's science. That's how you get to the answer of something. And, you know, of course, maybe he's wrong and he just hadn't witnessed it, but he clearly said, I've never seen anything like that on these types of trees where they're twisted. Snow can't twist, you know, this tree. He couldn't come up with any explanation for it. And so, you know, again, I encourage you to do that, Tammy.
Yeah. Record
those and let's get some science, and then you can publish that paper. There's avenues for doing that, and that's good science.
Yeah, it's like I've said all along. The burden of proof is on the people that are making the claims, not for you know, everybody else to disprove it.
Correct. Correct. Do some science and see what happens.
It's very profound, isn't it?
Les Stroud asks, either Todd has set this all up as an elaborate hoax and is a fraud, and that photo isn't a fake, and he has dedicated his whole life perpetrating this hoax, or it's not a fake, it's real. So what if this is real? And that's when Les Stroud put up that puppet-looking thing with the little button eyes and cute little nose.
And the fake fur and
the fuzz. Yeah.
Fuzzy. Needs a shape. Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, think of Tom Biscardi. How much time has he wasted in his life doing the stuff he's doing? The person whose name shall not be mentioned. How much time is he wasting? Well, obviously, it's much easier for them to fraud and get maybe money out of it than to have a real job, because I know I don't have time to do that kind of stuff. They're obviously getting something out of it. So would somebody spend their whole life being an absolute unmoral, unethical person? I can show you millions of those types of people in this world. Maybe it's not related to Bigfoot, but there are frauds in every ounce of everything humans do.
Yep, I agree totally.
And this was only part 1 of 2 episodes. And this episode, Tammy, you, like you mentioned in the beginning of this webcast, ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, Les set up a shelter, and a minimalist shelter, and has his camera set up, and he's standing there talking, and next thing you know, he looks off to the side. But one thing I will give him credit for, he did not say, "What was that? Did you hear that?" He just froze. That's standard Bigfoot television. Those kind of phrases that we hear so many times. That's what we were talking about, things being repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Formula Bigfoot television, that's what I was calling that. But he did freeze, and it was very similar to his reaction whenever, although it was a little more, enhanced than it was. His reaction was in the Alaska episode when he was making the grass mat, and he heard some sounds, and he would just kind of look off to the distance. You could tell he was hearing something. But all of that footage didn't make it into the episode. But you knew, once he pointed out, you knew he was hearing something.
Well, he said that what he heard in Alaska was an extremely loud sound that sounded like a great ape.
Yeah, he actually, on the Joe Rogan podcast, I think it was, actually mimicked that sound. It was very ape-like.
Our buddy Rosahibi said that he heard something make a sound up there at the Sierra site where Justin supposedly killed the Bigfoots.
Kathy, have you heard that sound, the ape sound, like a chimp sound or a gorilla sound?
No, I've heard howls, and I've heard what I would consider a scream, and then in Area X I heard something that I would call gibberish. That was just kind of, kind of thing. But I haven't heard anything that I would attribute like a hoot or something that I would associate with an ape sound myself. So no, not at all. But the traditional Native American viewpoint of Bigfoot, they call Tonopah, she's whistling woman of the woods because she's seen as hooting, her lips are pursed like this, like and so that leads me to believe that people have heard that sound of what would sound like a howler monkey or other ape types, and chimps and gorillas have a wide range of sounds that they're able to make. So, but humans can do that too. So,
the Sierra sounds. Do you think those are real?
Well, and here's an interesting note. The Sierra sounds were recorded very close to where I am right now. It's just up in the wilderness here of Sonora, California. We're the hotbed of everything exciting happening across the United States of America. And I think the first recordings are very intriguing, very intriguing. I haven't paid as much attention as the second CD as the first CD that Ron Moorhead has released, but since I've heard something kind of similar to that, I know that they're in my years as being an archaeologist, when I was 20, I guess. Well, how long ago was that? Not that long ago, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Out in the woods, miles and miles and miles and miles away from humanity, and hearing strange sounds like somebody's talking to another person in some kind of weird foreign language, and just getting kind of like, what is that? I wish now that I had paid more attention to it, that I had sought out what that sound would have been, but it's too late now. But I think the first Sierra Sounds CD is possible.
Now,
because
Justin,
sounds are sounds.
Sorry to cut you off, but Justin said that Justin Smith, the Bigfoot killer of the Sierras, the two little Bigfoots, the adolescent, the young ones, had like a deaf speak. So would that coincide with the gibberish that you heard?
No. Gibberish was more of like kind of thing. No kind of, we know that there's a gene, FOX2, that allows humans to speak. We believe Neanderthals were able to do that. It's tongue movement, it's the cleft palate, it's everything that goes with it. So, however, I didn't know Justin had said that, and so I would have to hear it in person to see how he was describing it. I would say I don't know. I'd have to hear how he was trying to describe it to see if I thought that was real.
So this Survivorman Bigfoot, part 1 of 2 episodes, I gotta admit, ladies, I was enthralled. I liked the concept of just the 2 of them with the cameras and their own microphones and his little remote control helicopter doing the aerial shots. It was just 2 men out in the middle of nowhere. They didn't have a huge production company following after them. And I thought that might be a very effective way of sneaking in to a Bigfoot area. Now, granted, people always say, Bigfoot knows you're there. Ha ha. Ooh, ooh. Well, maybe not. You know, I mean, the quiet method might work, especially with just 2 men instead of a whole 200 people Bigfoot Bounty production crew trampling through everywhere trying to set up the shots for Dean Cain, or the 25 people crew for finding Bigfoot. I think the 2-person method probably would work very well.
Yeah, depending on how long they were there. And you say out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think they were that far out because of the vehicle that they were using to get out there. It was one of those little side-by-side ATV things.
Yeah.
And
the terrain would have to be conducive to that side-by-side. And, and actually, to be honest with you, I think 2 women would be more effective. I think
agree.
Our hot, sexy voices are just so much more attractive.
And that brings us back to the bitches of Bigfoot. Which includes me.
Then it would be the divas of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
The race is on, Todd. You or Justin Smea are going to have to bring in a body. Oh wait. Rick Dyer already did that. All right, what's your thoughts, Tammy, on part 1 of Survivorman Bigfoot?
Well, I will always be a fan of Les Stroud and Survivorman. I think the Survivorman Bigfoot is good television. Like Kathy said, lacking science. But I will continue. I'll continue to watch, just because of morbid curiosity.
Maybe in part 2 we'll see him take his shirt off.
Hope so.
Kathy.
Oh God, Les or Todd?
Oh,
Les.
Les.
Okay.
You know what they say? Okay, anyway.
Okay, God, don't say it.
I was going to say, you know what they say about Canadian men? But then Les Stroud's Canadian, too, and I don't want to think of him being a little...
I don't even want to think about that, because falling even further off the pedestal.
We're now talking about the penis size of Les Stroud.
I've seen his butt on Survivorman. He has been naked on Survivorman.
What? Where have I been?
You should be watching, dude.
I'm going to Google that right now.
Come on, let me get my...
No, Les Stroud naked. Let's see what comes up.
I think on some channels they don't even bother blurring it out.
Oh.
I think you might get to see some crack.
I see something. Is that a little Todd? Wow. Well, hello there, Les Stroud. Welcome to After Hours.
Wow!
Okay, Kathy, it's your turn.
I agree with Tammy. I mean, I'll watch the 2nd episode with the curiosity on what happens, and and I'll give Les the due diligence that he clearly cares about the issue, and congratulate him for him. I wish he'd just gone about it a different way, but maybe with some after it airs, it intrigues other people, scientists, to take this seriously and reach out to the Bigfoot community in order to see what's out there and maybe put some scientific effort behind it. And That's all I can ever hope is that we're taken seriously and that people are doing scientific work and promoting it and supporting it. And that's what I would like to come out of all this.
So, did you like the show?
I like Les Stroud. I think he's adorable, and I like his methodology in the sense of I think he does know what he's doing in general. You know, I don't know, sometimes he identifies all his plants so well, but that's my own issue of being, you know, hypersensitive to that. But yeah, I enjoyed the show. I thought Todd was pleasant. I thought he had a great personality, and I actually thought that the show tried to minimize how often he was on. I didn't see a whole lot of like stuff, you know.
I gotta ask, do you think this show? It's hard to judge because we've only seen the one episode. Compare it to Finding Bigfoot. Would it be fair to be able to judge the two?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think Finding Bigfoot had a very tight what they were going to do. They have the same formula going on type of thing, and I think the personalities were different in the sense of I would never in a million years think that Cliff or Bobo or Matt would be anywhere near a fraud or hoax or would want to support something like that. And so in a lot of ways, even though maybe Finding Bigfoot was a little boring, it was honest in the sense of what they were finding. And I guess with Todd Standing involved with this show and Les Stroud, if a Bigfoot ran in front of him, I would seriously that is what really happened, that it wasn't a hoax to some sort. And that's the unfortunate part. What if a Bigfoot really did do it, but because Todd Standing's involved, how does that not make you doubt a little bit?
And on that note, ladies, I present to you Les Stroud. Booyah.
Whoa!
No. There we go. There you go. And he's covered for you, Kathy.
Oh, thank you.
Why is that a big leaf?
I'm shy.
You mean you put that leaf there?
No, I found it. I tried peeling the leaf away, but it was already attached to the picture. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Les Stroud, Survivorman Bigfoot, and yes, I will be tuning in to see more of him. All right, everybody, that's the end of this episode of After Hours with Rictor, my big comeback since Bigfoot Bounty has aired. More shows are on the way.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, I gotta say though, we have had a lot of guests on this show, but nothing has compared to what happened with Kathy tonight.
This has been by far the best.
The best After Hours ever.
Awesome. Glad I could help.
And we've had Meldrum, Moneymaker. By the way, Moneymaker said that the Chewbacca mask is a real Bigfoot.
Oh no!
On his Twitter, he was all over Twitter with that.
He's in denial.
Poor thing. Poor
I know. I feel sorry for him.